But, the other side of that is, maybe you don't entertain this idea that, okay, you don't fit the biblical womanhood description, and so, you must not be a woman. I think there are a lot of people who never entertained that idea. You have lots of people who are exposed to this biblical manhood, biblical womanhood thing, and they recognize that they didn't fit this prescription over here, and they never entertained the idea that perhaps they weren't, a man or a woman, respectively, right? I'll tell you what it did do. It did give me what's psychology calls a fuzzy sense of identity. I didn't know who I was. The only thing that I knew was that I kept trying to be something that didn't fit, right? It didn't make sense. It never worked, right? Part of what complementarians would teach is, if you've got a problem in your marriage, it's probably because you're not fitting the biblical womanhood role exactly right.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Because from the guy's perspective, we always said, it's your fault. If you'll fix this thing, everything will fall in line.
Well, it's so frustrating because, first of all, I started referring, so complementarians like to appeal to the Proverbs 31 woman. And I started referring to, when I say the Proverbs 31 woman, I mean the evangelical interpretation of that passage. And that evangelical interpretation of that passage, I began calling the Victoria's Secret model of evangelicalism, because she's a snapshot, she's photoshopped, so brushed up here and there, made to look perfect. But she's also an unattainable ideal. Because you can't ever, if you are working to become the Proverbs 31 woman, which is what complementarianism teaches, you'll never make it. Well, this goes back to the gospel. Of course you're not going to make it.
Right.
You can't. That's the whole point. You can't. And so at any rate, it just creates confusion. It creates, and I've seen it used in abusive ways. On the one hand, from husbands to wives, it's like, well, you're not being this prescription enough, right? You don't have the house clean enough. You aren't wearing feminine enough clothing. You don't have your crap together the way Proverbs 31 woman has her crap together. On the other hand, I've seen it used to abuse husbands. It's, you don't have a job. What's wrong with you, slacker? That's equally abusive. And it's, so you've created these caricatures, and you've said, if you're a good Christian, you're going to fit this caricature, and nobody can fit the caricature because you're not supposed to. Then what do you end up having left? Well, you start questioning your faith. You start questioning who you are. And that can lead to any number of places. Maybe you end up in divorce because you can't get along with your spouse. Because you guys have become abusive to one another in one form or another. I mean, it's depressing, especially since it doesn't have to be that way.
Right.
So